She says I'm avoidant. I read about attachment styles, anxious and avoidant and secure. And what does all this mean? And can we actually change attachment styles? Can we go, for instance, from feeling anxious and insecure to feeling more secure within ourselves, more inspired when we wake up every single day, more turned on within our own selves, that our heart grows bigger every day, regardless of what's happening otherwise in our life, regardless of our woman, regardless of money, regardless of whether our kids love us, tell us they love us in this moment or not. Can we be secure within ourselves? And can we move from a place of more insecurity to that place of security? Cynthia and I talk about long-term monogamous relationship here on the C Note show between a man and a woman, because we know as men that she wants safety, inspiration, and sexual leadership. And we want to learn to love and lead with mojo like a king in our lives, to more intimacy and connection. And we want to avoid mistakes and solve problems as they come up along the way. We want to avoid those pitfalls as we go. So can you change your attachment style, for instance, insecure to secure? Well, there's different ways to look at attachment, and very quickly, some graphics. One is to look at the two variables of avoidance and anxiety. So a secure person is low anxiety, low avoidance, right? And a person that has high avoidance, high anxiety is fearful and avoidant. What do you know? They're fearful because they have high anxiety and they avoid others. Here's another way to put it: secure, anxious, dismissive, or avoidant, and then fearful, disorganized. Man, with all of my research, you really don't want to be fearful and avoidant, which is labeled disorganized. That's incredibly difficult to have any types of relationships. You want people close to you, but you push them away. And we're going to get into that now. But let me ask Cynthia first. So in your advanced learning, in your women's groups and your tantric yoga and advanced sexual courses with women for yourself as well, when you talk about attachment styles, I'm wondering if this is a bit mundane for a woman to have a discussion about. So I want to start with, would you recommend that guys say, hey, wifey, I learned about attachment styles today, and look, I'm an anxious attachment style, and I think you're an avoidant attachment style. Should they run to their woman and start citing references about this stuff? What do you think? It sounds hot, I know.
It's a great wondering, because I think all of us in relationship feel like if there's the right kind of language to talk about dynamics, then we're naturally like, oh, we'll get someone else on the same page. What I don't like about that is how quickly the feminine seeks safety in the container of a label. And so if she's feeling uncertain in relationship with you, and suddenly there's this label that she can attach all her uncomfortable feelings to and kind of project on you all the things that you're doing wrong, then it ceases to be about her authentic feminine feeling. It almost gives her more of a masculine shield to hide behind, which to me is incredibly painful. It's painful for the feminine to feel like there's been a label to point out why she's wrong or bad or needs fixing. And then it's very painful for the feminine to get kind of dark and teeth filled and put a label on you, when really we're talking about much deeper energies of relationship and even more spiritual energies of relationship that push and pull. And that's what wakes up femininity, not perfect logic and not perfect containers.
Yeah, that's incredibly well said. Thank you for starting us off. We teach within our Kingly Life Path group the head, heart, balls, and breath. And knowing where you are in your mind, knowing where you are in your values and your heart in this moment, and knowing where you are in your sexuality and the staircase of intimacy is vitally important. So when you walk into the room with your woman, you see her for the first time in the kitchen. Where are my thoughts, right? Am I fearful? Am I avoidant? Where are my thoughts? Am I present? How's my breathing? Am I in this moment with my heartfelt values, right? Am I showing up as the man that I want to be, basically? And where is my grounding? Do I still believe in myself? Do I still believe in my potency in the world? my own sexuality, even if she wants nothing to do with that right now. So even if I talk about it that way, and we're certainly going to get into details here about attachment styles, even if I talk about it that way, how is that a different frame? How does that bounce off of the feminine?
Well, what I was feeling was how powerful you are as men and in your masculinity when you have awareness of dynamic. And you hold that in the space, but you're also very in tune to your own physical presence in that. And there's something, that combination that women can't hold, that really allows the feminine to feel safe in your presence, as if you've got an awareness eye on what's going on, but you're bringing it to her as a energetic level, groundedness that she can feel, a certainty that you have. Even if you're certain, like, hey, oh, this dynamic between us, there's some cracks in this that we need to work on. That's okay, because she'll feel in you that there's calibration to the current moment versus the energy of just being in the head and maybe swirling with what's wrong, which is going to heighten her own limbic brain and maybe even her attack of you, so that she can feel better and feel more of you versus the windiness and the ungroundedness of maybe being stuck in your own thoughts.
So what I'm hearing, honestly, is the more concepts or labels that we try to bring to a situation for us to understand, it seems as the more that she might hide behind, shield herself behind, make an excuse around, because it ends up just being all logic.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
It does, and this is not to negate that could be, it could be healthy, helpful vernacular in your relationship. I mean, a woman does have masculine parts of her and feminine parts of her, but if we're talking about real systemic change, spiritual change, energetic change, which to me is the brilliance of attachment theory, we gotta take it, or I invite to take it also to the energetic level of your own mastery, so that the feminine can feel that. And women don't know what's possible until they feel it. And so to me, that's the most important thing for her to get out of your mastery or your understanding of attachment theories or other key concepts.
She wants to feel it with you. She wants to feel it through you. So how can you bring it into your body? So consider along the way. So type into the chat as we go along. Consider, where are you within some of these descriptions? Where may she be? Attachment styles and how they affect your relationship. So I pulled the vast majority of this from an article by Mark Manson. He has tremendous resource quoted within as well and referenced within. So the article, you can search for attachment styles and how they affect your relationship by Mark Manson and check that out. I'm certainly not going to read all of this, and this is definitely not all of the article, but let's dive into it. People with secure attachment strategies are comfortable displaying interest and affection. They're also comfortable being alone and independent and display a healthy level of self-confidence. They're able to correctly prioritize the relationships within their life and tend to draw clear boundaries and stick to them. Secure attachment types obviously make the best romantic partners, family members, and even friends. They're capable of accepting rejection and moving on despite the pain, but they're also capable of being loyal and sacrificing when necessary. They have little issue trusting people they're close to and are trustworthy themselves. Secure types comfortably form intimate relationships not only with partners, but also friends. They have no trouble revealing themselves to and occasionally relying on others when situations call for it, and they're excellent caregivers. According to research, over 50% of the population are secure attachment types. Now, no one is any one of these. We're a combination of these. So we may have some avoidance tendencies, we may have some anxious tendencies, but this is, what are we predominantly? Right? And we can accept rejection and move on despite the pain is a hallmark of a secure attachment style. And Mark Manson says, meet this fake person, Secure Sarah. Fake Secure Sarah, she finds it easy to get emotionally close to her partner. When she shows her feelings for her partner, she knows that they feel the same about her. She knows that her partner will be there when she needs them. She wants to have her partner with her when she's upset, and she doesn't worry about her partner leaving. And if they were to do any of these things, she feels good that she knows how to handle it, or she has other support systems or other people she can go to, right, where it won't collapse all of her entire life. Anxious, as you might guess, are often nervous and stressed. Anxious attachment style, they're often nervous and stressed about their relationships. They need constant reassurance and affection from their partner. They have trouble being alone or single. They'll often succumb to unhealthy or abusive relationships. Anxious types have trouble trusting people, even if they're close to them, yet excessively rely on others for their emotional needs and to resolve their problems. Their behavior can be irrational, sporadic, and overly emotional. They're the ones complaining that every one of the opposite sex are cold and heartless, and probably bursting into tears while doing so. Yeah, they have trouble being alone or single, and they need constant reassurance and affection from their partner. Obviously, you're going to see some signs here that when a wife starts to move away, if you're not deep in your own security, you're going to start to swing more anxious. What's going on here? I need reassurance from them. And what does that do when we reach out more and more for someone that's backing away? They back away more. Meet the next fake person. Meet Anxious Anna. Anxious Anna says, my partner is reluctant to get as emotionally close as I would like. When I tell my partner my troubles, I feel like they don't really care. I find it hard to forgive my partner when they let me down. I often worry that my partner doesn't love me, and I fear that our relationship will end, says Anxious Anna. So quickly, avoidant, as you might guess, avoidance, it says they always have an exit strategy. Avoidants often construct their lifestyle in such a way to avoid commitment or too much intimate contact. In surveys, avoidant types score uniquely high on self-confidence and uniquely low on emotional expressiveness and warmth. They not only reveal themselves far less to their partner and friends, but they also tend not to rely on others, even when they should. They score lower than other types as caregivers, meaning they're not to be relied upon when in a pickle. And there's research referenced right there, so go to the article. It's a sad fact that relationships tend to be controlled by those who care the least. Therefore, avoidants tend to be the ones in control, quote unquote, I'll put for me, in both friendships and romantic relationships, as they're almost always willing to leave. This is opposed to anxious types who let themselves be controlled in both friendships and romantic relationships. So anxious need the validation from others, so they don't have boundaries and they overly commit themselves or overly open themselves because they feel they have to have that reassurance in friendship and romantic relationships, where a secure person would stand up for what they believe in their values. Where an avoidant person is, the avoidant tend to be the ones in control because they're the ones willing to more walk away quickly. So meet third fake person, avoidant Alex. Avoidant Alex prefers to keep to himself when he's around his partner. He doesn't talk to his partner about his feelings. Pussy. I don't give my partner the chance to let me down. It's if you share your feelings, you're a pussy, right? I heard that in a men's group once. If you don't, avoidant Alex doesn't give his partner the chance to let him down. Why give her the power to do that? I don't want to be around my partner if I'm feeling upset, avoidant Alex says. And he doesn't care if his partner would leave, right? Then I'm not going to go deep into anxious and avoidant. This is also called disorganized. It's the worst of both worlds. And meet fourth fake person, anxious avoidant Aaron. So he's both anxious and avoidant. He wants to get emotionally close, but he worries about them hurting his feelings. He wants to feel close to his partner, but he also doesn't trust them to want to be close to him, like they're lying or manipulating him. So he wants it, but he's avoidant of it. He can't live without a partner, even though being with them isn't working. So he has no identity within his own self. He doesn't know what else to do other than the devil that he knows. But he knows it's not working, and he doesn't feel strong enough about his values or who he is to stand up for himself in any capacity or to lead himself in any way. So I want to jump back to Cynthia, the one who's willing to leave, the one that's more avoidant, let's say in these examples, often controls the relationship. That was nice. Often controls, we had a little music in the background. Often controls the relationship. What are you seeing from a woman's point of view in women's groups? Because we're here in our guys group and we want the relationship, right? This is a loaded question. Are there women on the other side who are saying, oh God, all men are trash. None of them want deep relationship. She might say, I want deep connected relationship. Are you seeing that on the other side as well?
Oh, totally. And gosh, like there's this number that 50% of this our population is securely attached. I think anytime there's the dynamic of one person, their trigger part, the one that makes them feel powerful is to leave, it's going to force the other person into a more attached state, and then vice versa. I think there's just human nature there. And the securely attached, maybe those buttons are not being tapped on at the moment. So it's really easy to feel perfectly or report perfect security, which anytime there's a ruffling, what comes up. And there's the pattern of the person who's seeking more connection often can get into a pattern of attracting the person who runs away the quickest. And that's not bad or wrong. I see that happening with women. And then there's the flip side. They're the ones who run away. And it's not to demonize one side or the other. Where is the fear around intimacy? Where is the connection to feeling power? And who has the kind of mind's eye on the dynamic and is willing not to play into the current dynamic? In women's groups, the ones who are aching, like, please, why doesn't he want me? Their job is really to feel back into themselves and their own value and worth. And then see if they are attracting someone who wants to show up for that and is not running after them.
Yeah, well, exactly what you had said. And so let me ask this of you men. Cynthia is saying, able to look at their surroundings and compare that to your values, who you want to be, the man you want to be in this moment. So what are you recognizing either within yourself or within the dynamic with your woman, with your wife? Punch some things into the chat. How can you resonate with this? Or what question might you have? Or how does this remind you of something from your own life? Right? Secure, healthy view of self, speaks wants and needs easily, can attune to emotions, good self-esteem. Whereas the anxious is insecure, highly anxious, fear of being abandoned, often in fawn or freeze responses, fear of being alone, preoccupied with relationships, or avoidant, or both, the fearful and disorganized. How is this reminding you of something from your life? I'd love to engage with you. All right, I'll step forward into the last part of what I want to share today, and we'll talk more. So punch into the chat. This is what Cynthia was saying as well. Anxious and avoidance frequently end up in relationship with one another more often than they end up in relationship with their own type. Avoidant types are so good at putting others off that sometimes it's only the anxious types who are willing to stick around and put in the extra effort to get them to open up. So the avoidant might be running away, and it's only often an anxious person that's willing to stick around during this. Now, again, whether that's good or bad, or whether that's appropriate for you or not, is something to ask yourself, or bring us the question here. Right? Secure types are capable of dating or handling, depending on your perspective, both anxious and avoidant types. They're comfortable enough with themselves to give anxious types all the reassurance they need, and to give avoidant types the space they need without themselves feeling threatened. And so do you fall into being anxious if your partner needs reassurance? Or do you find yourself being avoidant if they need something, or if they feel threatened? Do you find yourself backing away too far? What all this adds up to, which is the same conclusion he proposes in his book, which is the book Models. It's a fantastic book. It's his first one, self-published by Mark Manson. In his first book, he proposes that in relationships, insecurity finds insecurity, and security finds security, even if those insecurities don't always look the same. To put it bluntly, to everyone who has emailed me over the years complaining that all of the other people they meet are insecure or have trust issues or are needy and manipulative, well, I have some bad news for you, he says, because you're attracting this insecurity in some way. That's a huge goal. Security, knowing your own self, value and who you are, a brotherhood of other guys, so we can like come here and talk about this and co-regulate together when you're in the shit, right? We're here for one another. We're here to bring you up into a place of security within your own self, to resonate off of other guys who are on this journey too. It's a huge piece of this brotherhood and why you're here. So let's look at the chat. Definitely anxious, but heading towards secure since starting this journey. Anxious, preoccupied, but my wife is avoidant, although she's very emotionally open. Tested as secure, but still lean towards anxious. So where did you take a quiz or something, or test? What do you mean tested as secure? You able to come in?
It's a school that has all these different tests.
Okay.
I have to search on my email for it, but I tested on it several times and surprised myself that it came up as secure.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, what was surprising about that, and how does that run into the, you in the world? You said being toward anxious.
Well, because with my marriage, then divorce, and separation up leading up into the divorce, it was something she wanted, not me. So that entire time, I was trying, hoping things would work out, hoping the divorce wouldn't happen. So I was constantly anxious, preoccupied, hoping that she would lean back in. So I don't know if it's true, but maybe a lot of it has to do with your circumstances. I mean, if your wife is pulling away, isn't that going to make you more insecure? That's kind of the way I felt. And now I'm divorced. She's still around. She still leans back occasionally. I would still like it to work out. I'm learning to become more secure. I'm learning more to follow Manson's approach and just not give a fuck, But I still lean in that way. I guess I still get that tendency where I'm insecure and I'm wondering what she's doing and why she's doing it and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. Hey, thanks for getting us going. We're going to talk here in a minute about more of what to do about being anxious as well. So thanks for opening that to us. Appreciate it. Just anxious, preoccupied, but getting more secure. Like, I love you guys in the chat here. Anxious, but wife avoidant, wife of anxious, and has now moved to anxious avoidant, secure, more anxious. You guys are on this. Yeah, please. So you said I was or am anxious, and my ex was definitely avoidant. This was something we both acknowledged. So when did you acknowledge it? When did you start learning about this, and how has it, served you since you started learning about it?
I think we started kind of like talking about it before we separated. We're both kind of individually doing our own therapy and learning. We also came from very different backgrounds. She came from, her parents divorced at a very young age, had a very kind of mixed family with stepchildren, and I think was forced to fend for herself a lot of life, whereas I came from, my parents are still together, not that they're a perfect marriage, but have a bunch of brothers I'm very close to. And so how we kind of like existed among others was very different. And I think like for me, I grew up always liking to be around people and relying on that. And like when I didn't really know how to behave when I was alone, like being, if I had a night to myself, I'd be like, oh shit, what do I do with my time? And even before I met my wife, that's how I'd be. Versus her, being alone was like her natural state. And I also, found like I would pursue, and I would almost push her away. I think that was part of how we ended up where we were. And it was maybe like too little, too late, kind of like recognizing both of our states. But even like now I've done a lot of work to kind of just recognize that anxiety I'd have. And like, I had this conversation with a friend, like sometimes I wonder, like, do we really change, or we just get better recognizing who we are and managing that? And I don't really know.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know what matters right now, but what I do find is like, I can catch myself even like after a year of separation, I noticed like there's been two different phases. One was me kind of being like, what do I do? Who am I without like my partner? And then another part that like automatically sort of started to change after working with kind of like Steve and my own coach and coming to these talks and reading a lot of books and just realizing like I'm a lot on my own. And now I kind of really enjoy doing things for myself. And that's just like a new thing. I'm 37, whereas like at the age of like even at 35, I would never have felt that way. I would have much preferred to just call up a friend, even if it's a friend I didn't want to hang with. Just like I just didn't like being on my own, but I don't feel that way anymore, I've found.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, but first, so about 2 years in this work. 2 years in this work feels like, I don't know, 20 years of wisdom, really, the way you're talking about it. It's your perspective on yourself and your grounding. So I want to ask you, so stay on the line if you would. Tell me if you resonate what Cynthia might say here, because I want to ask this question. So what is it about, so he doesn't want to be alone, cool. He starts pursuing a woman. Her natural state is to be alone, but she's probably enjoying being pursued. She's enjoying the biology, the instinctual attraction, the honeymoon phase, let's say. So I can imagine a man asking, well, what is it about that dynamic that I should have seen earlier? Or how could I have spoken up to something earlier? Was she just in the honeymoon phase? Was she kind of faking wanting to be in a relationship with me, when down the road, she's so alone, she wants to be alone and she's so avoidant, but I want to be with her, and now she's telling me that I'm needy and all this. So how could I have realized this earlier? Or what would I, if I had known better, if I had known all of this work, what would you say that the man could have done earlier to recognize within her, or to cultivate her into this divine relationship, into sacred connection and sex? What would you say?
I so appreciated hearing of how you have such a perspective on this, and how you're able to see so clearly that dynamic. That, like, the beginning stages are tough, because with a woman, yes, excitement and newness can shift her regular patterns of relating. And then let's say you're living together, you're married. If she has a natural inclination of needing to kind of wring out her own sponge, feel herself again in an alone space, it is going to be, she's going to want that more and more. And I would offer that isn't an indication that she's always like more avoidant. It just may mean that her anxiety shows up and really sucking in another person's energy. And this is her method of coming back to home base. So what do you do in that situation? It could be just earlier on in relationship, finding out from her, like, how do you rest and relax? What to you is a way of finding center? What do you need after a lot of interaction? And I think then, I said before about, hey, we're not trying to put labels on things with the feminine, but her getting to talk about, I do need this. And then it becomes part of the language of a relationship. It can actually be a fun, polarizing thing where she's like, yes, I'm going to go in my cave and wrap myself in my quilts now. And then she gets the joy and the excitement of re-emerging, kind of reborn into relationship with you, as opposed to feeling like she kind of always has to push away and keep at arm's length just to have that regrounding mechanism.
Sure. So the way we see it, the way we talk about it, the way the two of us talk about it is vital, is what you're saying. So let me ask, where within your relationship did you find this work? So did you have a chance to be this newfound confident man that you are now when you were with her, or where did you find this work?
Yes and no. I mean, I would say I became who I am now after we're separated and living apart. And I think like it caused, I don't know how to put it, like she certainly started to like come back. She said to me directly, like, I wish you were this way like 2 years ago. But at the same time, I also like noticed she was doing some work, and kind of I reciprocated and was like, well, I wish you were this way 2 years ago too. So, but I think like, there was definitely some ups and downs, and so it's been over a year now, but like, in May or August, there's periods where she would, say she really wanted to work on things, and she was like, sorry. And I'm Canadian, so I probably said sorry a little bit too early.
Nobody noticed. That's okay. That's right.
But yeah, and it was kind of weird because like by the time that started to happen, I was far more comfortable and confident with myself. And it's not that I would never have entertained getting back together at all. It was just like I had some more nuts or conditions or whatever. Just I knew what I wanted and had better clarity. And that was one thing I was never really good at in the relationship, was like I always would ask what she needed, but I never really advocated for what I needed. And kind of just realized that like, as much as I wasn't perfect and I'm happy to take accountability, there was also stuff I wasn't getting. And I was just at the point where I know we kind of like talk about it sometimes, and this stuff is just like, I wasn't afraid of divorce or being alone. And yeah, and I noticed like a bit of a change in her. And I think I could really see the conflicted kind of like gears turning in her head, where she had escaped somebody she thought was a certain way, and then maybe realized that's not totally true. The other thing, she's not a very patient person. So even, stuff like this doesn't happen overnight. And it was just a weird evolution to watch from my perspective, particularly after I had just like really spent a lot of time on my own, really spent a lot of time like working on myself with the help of like talking to guys like you and reading and just like asking myself, what do I want to do and what do I want? And that I think like just sort of like led to a point where I think right now it's even over the last like couple of weeks where it's like, I think I'm done. Like I would say the door has always been open for a while, but at this point it's just the way she has been showing up. And I say that with a ton of empathy. Like I think she's going through her own stuff. And some days I feel like we switched places. She walked into this with an enormous amount of confidence and determination that this is not how she wanted her life to go. Whereas now I almost feel like I've been set free to some degree. And I look at her and she looks a little bit trapped. Like she went into a rebound relationship. I think that's not what she really wants. And I feel sorry for her. And I've heard from friends and stuff. And I'm just kind of like, I have nothing to do with this. And it feels kind of liberating.
Yeah, phenomenal story. So good. What do you at this point of the man that he is and his belief in himself?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I loved what you pulled out and pointed out of in your confidence, she's kind of lost hers. And to me, that feels like the perfect example of your security has been hard won and your confidence is real and true inside of you and your heart. And her confidence was in what she was getting out of pushing you away, which is a false confidence, even though it can appear like she's got it all together, she's got it all figured out. And I mean, like you said, I have a lot of empathy because that feeling of when the false confidence strips away and suddenly she's left with her unanxious, insecure self, that's really hard. And it is the symptom of that I'm powerful by pushing away versus I'm powerful because of what's in here and the work that's been done.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, all rings true to me.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Good stuff. There's many guys that, yeah, as you know, there's many guys at different places of this journey. Some are brand new, some are just a handful of weeks or months, and some guys have turned a corner and life feels completely different. So I appreciate you being here and showing us that. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks. Let's go ahead and jump forward a bit. Can you change your attachment style? The good news is that your attachment style can change over time, although it's slow and difficult. Uh-oh. Must be worth it if it's slow and difficult. Research shows that an anxious or avoidant who enters a long-term relationship with a secure person can be, quote, raised up to the level of secure over an extended period of time. I would say this is co-regulation, right? And this is what we're doing here. You have to feel it to know that it's possible. And that's what we do for one another through this work and leading one another. He goes on to say, unfortunately, an anxious or avoidant is also capable of, quote, bringing down a secure to their level of insecurity if they're not careful. And this is where we become codependent with one another, or just assume that she knows more about relationship than you per se. That's an easy trope, that the woman is better at relationship, which isn't necessarily true. Also, extreme negative life events such as divorce, death of a child, serious accident can cause a secure attachment type to fall into a more insecure attachment type. And that's why we are here. It's why we're here with one another. That's where I was when I was going through this. So welcome to the club, guys. We're here for one another. Psychologists Bartholomew and Horowitz have hypothesized a model showing that one's attachment strategy corresponds to the degree of positive or negative self-image and the positive or negative image of others. So to put it simply, how do we look at ourselves and how do we look at others? An anxious doesn't trust themselves. An avoidant doesn't trust others. And a fearful avoidant doesn't trust either themselves or others. So how do we view ourselves? This X on the screen, it's a little bit difficult to read here from the article. There's two axes. One is self-esteem. How do I consider myself in a positive light or negative? And sociability, right, or our image of others. And a secure person defaults to thinking positively about both, positively about themselves and positively about others. So a huge piece of what we learn here is our default frame of mind, or the theater in your mind that's running as I teach my one-on-one clients. How do we have our mind on the track of connection and depth and intimacy with our woman and within ourselves automatically? Or how do we reset that every day or in a moment when we need to? It's something I teach my guys. So let's keep going to the end here. We'll finish up. Let's see. Anxious types, so anxious people, can work on themselves, work on developing themselves, creating healthy boundaries and fostering a healthy self-image, instead of constantly looking for the one who will magically solve all their problems. So she needs to do this for me so things are fixed. She needs to fix herself and then magically everything will be better. Instead of doing that, they can look for things that will make themselves a better, healthier person in both mind and body. One of the most common pieces of advice is for men to find something they're passionate about and good at and make that a focal point of their life rather than women. Needless to say, the same goes for women as well. Once they're content with who they are, anxious types can then work to become more aware of their tendency to seek partners that reaffirm their negative self-image. So flushing out your shadow, what you've suppressed or repressed or turned away from within yourself, is such a huge part of this. So in other words, know what you find kind of disgusting about yourself. What did you shove down to the basement a long time ago about yourself that you want to bring out now, even if it's still scary, even if you still want to turn away from it? Bring it out to your coach, bring it out to the forum, bring it out here, right? And bring it out to one another. Appreciate you guys here. Let's take a look. We're almost out of time. I do find being more secure is a bit more natural now versus something I have to force. Yeah, I love it. Good stuff. Yeah, I appreciate you guys being here. Cynthia, after reading all these guys in the chat here, you guys are super aware. You're on the journey, you're on the path. What are you seeing from all these men? What they're attempting to do within their own selves, within their own direction and heart? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I so appreciate the awareness and even just the overarching understanding that, looking for a place of security. And it said there, like, how one shifts one's attachment style to be more secure. But also I'm feeling just the wisdom of the men here who have been doing this work, that this perfect security, maybe in 2 years it's 99% of the time, maybe in 6 months it's 75% of the time, but that this is a practice in life, and there's always going to be things at work or a woman or a child or a pet that can bring up its fingers and tap on some of those original anxieties. And I just want to share that the women in your life, they don't need you at 100%. What they do need is your awareness and the incredible forgiveness and honor of yourself through humanness. That's what she's going to feel in you deeply, not holding on with an iron fist to a perfect attainment that she'll feel like she can't even connect to your energy through.
Yeah, thank you. It's not about being a Roman statue, right? It's about being the man that you are in your heart and in your soul and getting in touch with that. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Cynthia. Have a good one. Ciao.